Lydia Mallister thought she had married safety. She thought the West could not swallow her if she stood beside a holy man. Reverend Silas Mallister had a voice that could make hard men bow their heads and whisper amen like it was their last breath. In the small town of Redemption, people treated him like a living shield between them and the wild. Lydia stood in the front pew and watched them look at him with hunger, like his words were water. But Lydia did not see a shield. She saw a man who knew how to pull a room tight around his finger. He paused at the right time. He raised his voice like thunder, then lowered it like a secret. He found the one weak face in the crowd and aimed straight at it. They called it the spirit moving. Lydia called it craft. For 5 years, she tried to be the wife he demanded. Quiet. Soft. Invisible. The kind of woman who made his light look brighter. In public, he spoke about grace. At home, he spoke about rules. Her dress was never modest enough, even when he chose it. Her smile lasted too long. Her words sounded too warm. If she asked a question, he called it pride. If she defended herself, he called it rebellion. Their marriage was not love. It was duty in the dark and silence in the day. Lydia learned to keep her eyes lowered and her hands busy. She learned to swallow her thoughts like dry bread. She learned that even kindness could be used as a leash. Her only relief was the small kitchen window. Past the dusty street and the worn buildings of Redemption, the land opened wide. It rolled in hard waves of brown and sage, running toward mountains that cut the sky like teeth. The country was rough and honest. It did not pretend. Lydia stared at it and felt something she could barely name. A thin memory of herself as a girl in Pennsylvania, running through green fields with her hair loose and her knees stained with grass. That girl felt like a stranger now, and Lydia missed her like she was dead. The breaking point came on a Sunday so hot, the air felt thick. The church smelled of dust, pine boards, and sweat. Silas preached about the sins of the flesh. His voice cracked with heat and anger, and the crowd leaned in like they wanted to be burned clean. When the final prayer ended, a woman stood up, Martha Gable, the baker's wife. Her eyes were sharp, her mouth tight with joy that looked like faith. She raised her voice so the whole church could hear. "Reverend," Martha said, "there is rot in this house." Your wife was whispering behind the livery stable with Jebediah from the choir, laughing, standing too close. The room turned on Lydia in a single breath. Faces swung toward her like doors slamming shut. Lydia felt her skin heat with shame, and not because she had done wrong. She had spoken to Jebediah one moment, nothing more, just about a gift for his sick mother. But truth did not matter in Redemption when a story could feed a crowd. Silas stepped down from the pulpit fast. His boots hit the floor like hammer blows. He grabbed Lydia's arm hard enough to hurt and pulled her into the open, right in front of the altar. "Is it true?" he shouted, and his voice was not a shepherd's voice anymore. It was a threat. "No," Lydia said, but the word came out thin. The whole church watched her like they were waiting for her to confess. Silas shook her once, quick and violent. Lydia's teeth clicked. He did it in front of everyone. She looked for kindness in the crowd and found none. She saw judgment. She saw relief that the preacher's wife could bleed like any other woman. That night, Silas kept her in the church after dark. A lantern on the altar threw shadows across the walls. He paced like a caged animal, whispering poison through clenched teeth. "You have made me weak," he said. "They will use this against me. You will say nothing. You will explain nothing. You will be silent in my house." Lydia stared at him and felt something inside her turn cold and clear. She had once believed he was salvation. Now she saw a jailer who wore scripture like armor. When he finally sent her back to the parsonage, Lydia did not pray for forgiveness. She planned. A quiet widow named Sarah lived in a small cottage near the edge of town. Sarah's kindness had always been steady, like a lamp that did not flicker. Lydia knocked late, hands shaking, voice low. Sarah took one look at her and understood without being told. When Lydia spoke the truth in broken whispers, Sarah's face hardened with a calm anger. "He is a monster wrapped in holy words," Sarah said. She pressed food into Lydia's hands. A little cheese, dried fruit, a small water skin. Then she pushed a worn pouch of coins into Lydia's palm. "Go west toward the Sentinel Peaks," Sarah said. "There is a pass. Few men take it. Leave before sunrise. Do not look back." On the walk home, Lydia saw Reverend Baxter locking the church door. He looked at her with pity, and then looked away like pity was all he could afford. His keys jingled in the quiet street, and Lydia understood that fear owned this town more than God ever had. Back at the parsonage, Lydia moved like a shadow. She packed a small satchel, a change of underthings, her mother's silver locket, a sturdy kitchen knife, Sarah's provisions. She pulled a dark shawl over her hair. Silas was in his study, likely reading verses he could use like stones. The back door creaked when she opened it. Lydia froze, heart pounding. No footsteps came. She slipped into the yard and headed behind the church, staying near the shadows until the last building fell behind her. The wild met her with cold air and the smell of dry earth. The moon gave little light. Rocks cut her shoes. Thorns tugged at her skirt. Somewhere far off, a coyote called into the darkness like a warning. Fear followed her, but with each step away from redemption, something else grew. A sharp, strange feeling that made her breathe deeper. Freedom. It tasted like dust and danger, but it was real. 3 days later, the food was gone. The water skin was nearly empty. Lydia's lips cracked. Her legs shook. The sun burned her by day and the cold gnawed her by night. She curled under a low rock shelf and slept in short, scared pieces. Then she heard it. A steady crunch on stone. Hooves. Lydia pressed back into the darkness, certain Silas had sent men. A rider appeared in the pale nightlight, tall in the saddle, moving slow like he knew this land. He stopped, read a paper in his hands like a map, and lifted his head. "Anyone there?" the man called, not loud, not cruel, just careful. Lydia held her breath. The rider turned as if to leave, and a small stone slid down near her shelter. His head snapped back. His eyes found her shadow. For a long moment, they stared at each other. Lydia's whole body tensed to run, but the man raised his hands where she could see them and took one slow step closer. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said, "but a woman alone out here won't last." Lydia tried to speak and only a dry sob came out. The man's face softened, like he understood pain without needing details. He nodded once, as if he had already decided something he did not want to decide. "My name is Cal," he said. "I've got a cabin nearby, warm, water. You can come with me, or you can stay. Your choice." Lydia looked past him into the black wilderness. Stay meant death. Go meant risk. Behind her, the wind rose like a whisper with teeth. Far away, unseen, the town she escaped still had a voice. And men who wanted her back. Cal did not rush Lydia. He waited until she nodded, then helped her stand like she was something fragile and important at the same time. His horse was steady, the kind that did not spook easy, and Cal lifted Lydia up with one firm motion, keeping his hands respectful and quick. He climbed up behind her, and the warmth of his body at her back felt strange after years of cold duty. They rode without talking, moving through dark trees and broken rock, the wind hissing through pine needles like a warning. The cabin sat tucked into tall pines, half hidden like the mountain wanted to keep it secret. It was small, built from rough logs with a solid door and a chimney that still worked. Inside was simple and clean. A stone hearth, a bedroll, a table, one chair, a few tins on a shelf, and a rifle leaning where a man could reach it fast. It was not a home made for comfort. It was a place made for survival. Cal got water first. He warmed it and handed it to Lydia in a tin cup. Lydia drank like the water was life itself, because it was. He gave her dried meat and hard bread, and she ate with shaking hands. When he saw a scrape on her skin, he cleaned it without a word, the same calm way a person ties a knot. No judgment, no sermon, no anger, just care. "You're running from your husband," Cal said, like he had already read the truth on her face. Lydia swallowed and nodded. She expected him to ask questions that felt like traps. Instead, he stared into the fire like he was thinking about roads. "A man like that will send others," Cal said. "Not because he loves you, because he cannot stand being seen as weak." The words hit Lydia hard because they matched what she already feared. She asked who Cal really was, and his eyes carried a tired sadness that did not belong to a harmless man. "Cal Rains," he said. "People used to call me a gunslinger. I killed a man in a land dispute. It was a fair fight, but his friends had power. They put a price on my head. I've been moving ever since." Lydia felt the room tilt. She had fled a preacher and been saved by a fugitive. She wanted to trust no one, but her body was still weak, and the mountain night outside was still hungry. Cal put his own blanket near the door and laid the bedroll closer to the fire for her. He slept between her and the door with his rifle close, not like a man showing off, but like a man who had learned what darkness could bring. Lydia lay awake staring at the ceiling, hearing the fire crackle and the wind moan. She was safe for the moment, but the moment felt thin. Back in Redemption, the town did not sleep easy once they noticed the preacher's wife was gone. Silas stood before the people with sorrow on his face, speaking about Lydia's fragile mind and the danger of temptation. He asked for prayers like he was the wounded one. But in the saloon's back room, his sorrow turned sharp and cold. He slid a heavy pouch of coins across a stained table to a man with hard eyes and a notched belt. The bounty hunter's name was Jedediah Stone. He was known for bringing back what others could not find. Silas did not call Lydia his wife in that room. He called her a problem that had to be fixed. In the cabin, the first days became a slow return to life. Clean water from a spring rebuilt Lydia's strength. Food filled the hollow ache in her belly. Sleep stitched the edges of her fear back together, even if nightmares still grabbed her in the dark. For the first time in 5 years, no one ordered her voice to stay small. No one watched her like she was a stain. Cal spoke little, but he did not keep her helpless. He showed her how to split kindling, how to keep a fire alive, how to hold a knife the right way so it did not slip. Lydia's hands were used to dough and thread, not steel and bark. On the second day, the knife slid and bit her thumb. Lydia flinched, tears rising from pain and shame, expecting anger. Cal took the knife away, washed the cut, and wrapped it neatly. That was all. "It happens," he said, like mistakes did not make a person unworthy. The kindness almost broke her more than cruelty ever had. Lydia realized how long she had lived without simple gentleness. Cal taught her to listen. He pointed out tracks in the dirt, broken twigs, disturbed leaves. He explained the birds that warned of strangers and the silence that meant something was wrong. Lydia began to understand the mountain had a language, and she could learn it. One evening, Cal spoke about a wife and a son. He did not say their names at first, only that they belonged to a life he could not go back to. Lydia heard the grief he was trying to keep buried, and she did not push. She knew what it meant to carry pain in your mouth like a secret stone. A shift happened the day Cal put her on his horse again and guided her in slow circles near the cabin. Lydia was stiff with fear, gripping the saddle wrong, breathing too fast. Cal stood close, his voice low near her ear, telling her the horse could feel her panic. "Move with him," he said. "Trust the rhythm." Lydia tried, and something inside her loosened. She sat taller, the world looked wider from the saddle. It felt like a door opening. Then, the sanctuary cracked. Lydia went to gather berries near the spring, while Cal checked his snares. She walked farther than usual, chasing a thick patch, thinking she was finally learning freedom. On her way back, she stepped through soft ground, and left clear marks. When Cal returned, he saw the prints at once. His whole body went still. Lydia's confidence collapsed. "Those are mine," she said. "I wasn't thinking." Cal did not scold her. He moved like a man counting danger. He circled the cabin, searching the trees, the brush, the slope. Then he crouched near a thicket and lifted something small from the ground, a spent rifle cartridge. "They were watching," he said, voice flat, waiting. He led Lydia inside, and she saw it too. The bedding tossed, food tins pried open, ash kicked from the hearth, and in the log wall above where she had slept, a clean, ugly hole that did not belong. A bullet hole. Cal's eyes hardened. "We leave now." Lydia's heart pounded, not just with fear, but with anger. She had run once. She had promised herself she would not spend the rest of her life as a shadow on the move. Her voice shook, but it held. "No," she said. Cal froze, staring at her like he did not recognize the woman standing in front of him. "I am done running," Lydia said. "If I must fight, then I will learn." For a moment, Cal looked torn between protecting her and respecting her. Then the wind outside rose louder, and a faint jingle came from the tree line, like something small had been disturbed. Cal's face tightened. "They're close," he whispered, and Lydia realized her choice might not come later, when she felt ready. It might come tonight, in the dark, with strangers in the trees, and the mountain holding its breath. The mountain went quiet in a way that made Lydia's skin tighten. Cal listened with his head slightly turned, like he could hear a thought moving through the trees. The faint jingle came again, thin and metallic, then stopped. Cal's eyes narrowed. He grabbed his rifle and nodded toward the door. "We look," he said, "but you stay behind me." Lydia wanted to argue. She wanted to prove she meant what she said. But the fear was real, and the night outside felt full of teeth. She followed him anyway, keeping close, stepping where he stepped, trying to breathe slow the way he had taught her. A cold mist slid down from the peaks and settled between the pines. Snow started as soft flakes that melted on Lydia's cheeks, then turned sharper, like the sky was changing its mind. Cal moved along the edge of the clearing, staying in shadow, watching the ground. Down the slope, a faint orange glow blinked once and vanished. A fire, small and hidden. Cal's jaw tightened. He motioned for Lydia to back away, but as she turned, her foot found a slick patch of moss on stone. Her leg shot out. She grabbed at a branch, and it snapped under her hand with a loud crack. Lydia hit the ground hard. Mud soaked her skirt. The fabric tore with a ripping sound that felt louder than a gunshot in her ears. She froze in shock, then scrambled, trying to pull herself together, trying to pull the torn cloth back into place. Cal was at her side instantly, crouched low, pistol out, eyes scanning the dark trees. His hunter's focus broke for one breath when he saw Lydia's ripped skirt and her helpless panic. "Sweet Jesus," he whispered, not angry, not mocking, just stunned. "You are trouble." Heat rushed to Lydia's face, shame and fury mixed together. Her whole life had been a lesson in being embarrassed for simply existing. "It was a slippery rock," she hissed, teeth clenched. "Help me up." For one heartbeat, Cal let out a short breath that almost sounded like a laugh, the kind that comes when fear and disbelief crash together. Then his face went hard again. "Quiet," he said. "Listen." They held still. The wind sighed through branches, snow tapped leaves, no voices, no footsteps. But the forest did not feel empty anymore. It felt like it was hiding something. Cal pulled Lydia up carefully. Her knee screamed with pain. She bit back a sound and leaned into him, hating that she needed support. Cal did not make it worse with words. He simply steadied her and guided her back toward the cabin. When the cabin came into view, Cal stopped so fast, Lydia nearly stumbled. Smoke rose from the chimney, thin and wrong, like a fire had been disturbed. Cal's hand tightened on Lydia's arm. "Someone was inside," he said. The front door was cracked open, even though Cal had barred it before. He did not charge in. He circled first, low and careful, reading signs the way a preacher reads a page. Lydia followed, her knee throbbing, her breath tight in her throat. Inside, the cabin looked violated. The tins were pried open, their bedding was thrown on the floor. Ash from the hearth was scattered across the boards like dirty snow. Lydia's stomach turned because it felt too much like the parsonage, like her life being searched and judged. Then she saw it, a small, splintered hole in the log wall above the bedroll. A bullet hole. Cal's face went still, like he had just seen a promise written in wood. "They left a message," he said. Lydia's hands shook, not just with fear, but with anger. These men were not searching for food. They were searching for control. Cal grabbed what he could, fast and quiet. Ammunition, jerky, a blanket. He moved like a man used to leaving in the dark. "We go now," he said. Outside, the snow thickened into freezing rain. The wind rose until it whined through the pines. Lydia tried to walk without limping, but her knee buckled. Pain shot up her leg and stole her breath. Cal came to her side and wrapped an arm around her waist, taking some of her weight. Lydia hated the weakness she felt, but she hated even more that she had dragged trouble into this man's life. "This is my fault," she whispered, voice raw. Cal stopped and turned her to face him. Rain dripped from the brim of his hat. His eyes were fierce. "No," he said. "This is their fault. The ones hunting you. The one who sent them. Do you hear me, Lydia? I will not let them take you." His words hit her like warmth in winter, and it scared her how much she needed them. They pushed into the trees, leaving the cabin behind. The forest became a maze of black shapes and wet branches. The ground turned slick. Lydia slipped twice, catching herself with shaking hands. Cal never let her fall. At last, he found a narrow crack in a rock outcropping, a tight space that blocked the wind. They squeezed into it, huddled close, wrapped in the single dry blanket. Lydia's shivering turned violent, her body trembling like it was trying to break apart. Cal pulled her against his chest, holding her the way a person holds something precious in a storm. It was not romance, it was survival. But it was the most intimate safety she had ever known. For a long time they listened. Then, faint as a whisper, came the sound of men in the woods. Low voices, boots on wet ground. The careful patience of hunters who knew their prey was tired. At dawn the world turned gray and cruel. The rain stopped, leaving everything damp and sharp. Cal stepped out first, eyes scanning. Lydia followed, stiff and aching. Tracks were there, clear in the soft earth. Boot prints. 2 sets at least, moving with purpose. Cal's mouth tightened. "We cannot outrun them anymore." Lydia's chest went tight. "Then what do we do?" Cal's gaze moved to a narrow trail that squeezed between a rock wall and thorny brush, a choke point. A place where numbers mattered less. "We make them come where we want," he said. He worked fast, setting a dead tree so it would fall with one hard push, blocking the path. He dragged branches into place, making a funnel that would force someone into view. Lydia watched, heart pounding, realizing this was what Cal truly was when the world turned violent. Not cruel, not reckless, just prepared. A sharp crack echoed from the distance. A gunshot, testing powder after the wet night. Lydia flinched. Cal put a hand on her shoulder. "Get down behind that log," he whispered. "Do not move." Lydia dropped behind a fallen pine, pressing her cheek to wet bark, trying to quiet her breathing. The woods fell silent, as if even the birds were afraid. A man appeared on the trail, big, bearded, wearing a heavy coat. He walked like he owned the mountain. Another shape moved behind him, slower, watching. Cal rose from cover like a shadow and fired not to kill, but to warn. The shot slammed into rock and exploded stone chips into the air. The big man cursed and stumbled back, startled. In that instant, Lydia saw it. The second man did not panic. He stayed calm. He watched the trees like he was studying a puzzle. Cal grabbed Lydia's hand and pulled her up. "That one is the real danger," he hissed. They ran, not blindly but hard, climbing over rocks and through thick brush, forcing their bodies to keep moving. Lydia's knee burned. Her lungs felt too small, but she kept going because stopping meant a rope, a cage, and Silas's voice calling it salvation. They reached a stream, fast and icy. Cal dragged her through, the water stealing Lydia's breath, biting into her leg. They stumbled out the other side, shivering, soaked, and desperate. By late afternoon, Lydia spotted a shallow cave tucked into rock, hidden by roots and brush. They crawled inside. Cal built a small fire deeper in, low smoke, careful light. The warmth felt like mercy. Lydia stared at Cal in the flicker of flame. "Teach me," she said. "If they come again, I will not be a burden." Cal looked exhausted, but he nodded once, like the decision cost him. Before he could speak, a small stone skittered at the cave mouth. Then the scrape of a boot. Cal's head snapped up. His eyes went hard. "They found us," he whispered. Cal moved before Lydia could even breathe. He pulled her down into the deepest shadow of the cave and pushed her behind a low shelf of rock. The firelight was the danger now, a glowing target in the dark. Cal scooped wet dirt over the flame with his boot until it became only a dull red eye. A second sound came at the cave mouth, not a mistake, not an animal. It was the slow scrape of a man testing footing. Lydia's heart pounded so hard she thought the mountain could hear it. Cal lifted his pistol and held it steady, his face tight with focus. A voice slid into the cave, calm and almost friendly. "Cal Rains," the voice said. "I heard you were hard to kill." The name hit Lydia like a cold hand. The man did not say it like a rumor, he said it like a fact he had already proven with other bodies. Cal did not answer. Bootsteps moved closer, careful, patient. Then another voice, harsher, full of heat, Lydia knew too well. "Lydia," Silas called, "come out right now. You have sinned enough. This is your last chance to return to your husband." Lydia's stomach twisted. Silas sounded like he was standing in the church again, calling himself righteous while holding her life in his fist. Cal's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice low. "Stay still," he whispered to Lydia, "no matter what you hear." Lydia pressed her hand over her mouth to hold back any sound. The cave felt smaller with every breath. A dark shape filled the mouth of the cave, blocking the weak gray light outside. A man stepped in, broad and solid, holding a rifle like it was part of his arm. Jedediah Stone. His eyes swept the cave fast, hunting for movement, for heat, for fear. He smiled like he could already taste victory. Behind him, Silas's shape appeared, his coat flapping in the wind, his face twisted with rage and pride. Jedediah lifted his rifle. "Show yourself, Cal," he said, "or I start putting holes in the shadows until I hit what I want." Cal fired first. The sound cracked through the cave like a whip. Jedediah flinched, stumbling back as the shot tore stone near his shoulder and sent chips flying. It was not a clean hit, but it was enough to break Jedediah's calm. The bounty hunter fired back, and the cave filled with smoke and sharp noise. Lydia curled tighter behind the rock shelf, covering her head, feeling the air shake with each shot. Dust rained down. The smell of gunpowder burned her throat. Jedediah backed out of the cave, not running, but adjusting. He was too smart to charge inside blind. He circled to the side, trying to get an angle into the cave mouth. Silas stayed behind him, yelling into the dark like his voice was still a weapon. "She is mine," Silas shouted. "You cannot keep her, Cal. That woman belongs to me and to God." Lydia heard those words, and something in her snapped clean. She was tired of being called someone's property. She was tired of men using God as a chain. Cal leaned toward her, his face pale in the dim light. "We cannot stay here," he whispered. "He will wait us out, then burn us out." Lydia's eyes darted toward the mouth of the cave. Snow and wind swirled outside. The world looked like it wanted to erase all tracks. That storm could hide them, if they could move. Cal pointed toward a narrow crack deeper in the cave, a tight passage Lydia had not noticed. "It leads out the back," he said. "Crawl, then run when I tell you." Lydia nodded, fear and resolve fighting inside her chest. Cal fired again, and while Jedediah ducked, Cal grabbed Lydia's hand and pushed her toward the crack. They crawled through rock and roots, scraping knees and palms. Lydia's injured knee screamed, but she kept going because the old life was behind her, and she would rather bleed than go back. They burst out on the far side into thick brush. The wind slapped Lydia's face and filled her mouth with cold air. Cal pulled her low and moved fast downhill, keeping them hidden under trees. They did not get far before a rifle shot cracked behind them. Bark exploded from a tree trunk near Cal's head. Jedediah had guessed the exit. Cal shoved Lydia forward. "Run," he said. Lydia ran. She ran with pain in her knee and fire in her lungs. She ran like every step was a refusal. They broke into a small clearing, and Lydia saw it at once, the shape of the cabin through the trees. Their cabin, the only place Cal knew, like an extension of his own body. Cal grabbed her arm and steered her hard left, keeping them from approaching straight on. They reached the cabin's side and slipped inside through a back gap Cal had prepared earlier for emergencies. The air inside smelled of ash and cold wood. The walls still held bullet scars. Cal barred the door with a heavy table. His breathing was rough. He was moving on pure will now. "Listen," he said, forcing Lydia to meet his eyes. "If they break in, you do what you must. Do not freeze. Do not wait for permission." Lydia swallowed. Her hands were shaking. But she nodded. The wind rose. Then they heard it, boots crunching in snow outside, slow and sure. A voice came through the storm. "Cal!" Jedediah called. "I can do this all night, but you cannot." Silas's voice followed, sharp like a blade. "Open the door," Silas shouted. "You will come back to redemption, Lydia. You will confess, and you will be put back where you belong." Lydia stood very still. She stared at the door, and all she could see was that church altar, Silas's hand crushing her arm, the crowd watching her shame like entertainment. Cal raised his rifle, aiming at the door, waiting for the first crack of wood. It came fast. A heavy udar hit the door. The wood groaned. Another blow came, and the frame splintered. Cal fired through the crack, and a man outside screamed and stumbled back. The sound of panic rippled through the storm. Then Jedediah fired from the side window. The bullet tore through the thin wall and struck Cal high in the shoulder. Cal grunted and dropped to one knee, his rifle slipping from his hands. Lydia's breath stopped. Fear tried to swallow her whole. Cal looked up at her, jaw clenched against pain. "Do not let him take you," he forced out. Lydia moved. She grabbed Cal's pistol from the floor where it had fallen earlier, and she went to the broken window. Snow whipped in, stinging her face. She squinted into the storm until she saw a dark shape behind a rock, a steady figure reloading with calm hands. Jedediah. Lydia braced her arm on the window frame the way Cal had shown her, even though her hands shook. She did not think about blood. She did not think about sin. She did not think about what Silas would call her. She thought only about freedom. She fired. Jedediah cried out, dropping his rifle and clutching his shoulder. He staggered, losing his balance, then fell into the snow with a curse. His men shouted, suddenly unsure, suddenly scared. The storm swallowed their courage. Boots retreated. Voices faded. Only one figure remained, standing in the clearing like a dark post in the white wind. Silas. He stepped forward, eyes wild, mouth twisted with hate. "You will burn for this," he shouted. "You are a Jezebel. You were always weak." Lydia stepped into the doorway with the pistol lowered at her side. Her hair was loose. Her clothes were torn. Her face was smudged with ash. She did not look like a preacher's wife anymore. She looked like herself. Silas stopped. For the first time, his voice caught. He saw the change in her eyes. He saw that she was not begging anymore. She was not shrinking. She was not asking to be forgiven. She was done. Lydia spoke, and her voice was steady. "You do not own me," she said. The words were simple, but they hit Silas like a blow. He took a half step back, then another. His pride tried to keep him standing, but his fear finally spoke louder. He turned and stumbled into the storm, shrinking into the white like a shadow running from daylight. Inside, Cal's breathing was shallow and rough. Lydia rushed to him and dropped to her knees. Blood seeped through his shirt. Her hands shook, but she forced them steady. She tore cloth from her skirt and pressed it to his wound. Cal's eyes opened halfway. He looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. "You saved me," he whispered. Tears filled Lydia's eyes, hot against the cold air. "You saved me first," she said, and her voice broke on the truth. The storm outside kept howling, but inside the cabin something had changed. The fear was still there, but it no longer owned the room. Lydia held Cal's hand and kept pressure on the wound, refusing to let him slip away. Dawn came slow and pale. The wind eased. The snow settled. When Lydia looked out, she saw tracks leading away from the cabin and no new ones coming back. For the first time since she left Redemption, she believed it. She was free, and she had fought for it.